kind of.
I have this one muted.
Oh, okay.
Because otherwise you're getting feedback.
Right.
Yeah, we don't want both machines.
Okay.
I got somebody coming. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
We're broadcasting for what it's worth.
Okay, so let's get started. I guess if we want to just go around the room, just say who you are. I'm Sean. Start somewhere over here.
Who are you?
Who are you? Sean McGinnis. I work for Dell.
I'm Scott D'Angelo, Scott DANRC. I work for HP, or Hewlett Packard Enterprise, on the Helium product.
My name's Walt Boring. I'm Hemna on IRC. I work at HP with Kurt. I primarily work on Brick and Nova to Cinder communications.
I'm Fergal McCarthy. I'm F. McCarthy on IRC. I work with Scott on Helium product from HP. Duncan Thomas, again, HPE. Most I work on telling people why their idea won't work.
Hi, I'm Ivan Kovac and I'm working on branches for Cinder. I'm working on most only Cinder API and volume attachments, but without Nova, the running stuff.
Good to be back in the
I'm Andrew Kerr, I'm A. Kerr on IRC.
I guess we'll just.
Kurt Martin with HPE. Every once in a while, they let me work on Cinder, mostly dealing with customer issues, but that's a good thing. K. Martin on IRC.
Some Patrick East with Pure Storage. Patrick East on IRC. I do maintain our drivers, CI system, work on Cinder things.
Supposedly we're on you. Somebody want to hang out.
This is the mic. Okay. Alex Mead with NetApp. Work mostly on Cinder and Manila at the moment. Long-time stacker. That's me.
Sure. I can use mine.
Okay. I am Kendall Nelson. I work at IBM. I do Cindery things, and I'm working on learning Brick. IRC is Diablo Rojo.
I'm Jay Bryant with IBM and been on Cinder for about 3 years.
Feel good too.
This is Jay singing.
I sing. So, should I go on? After that musical interlude. Anyway, been on Cinder for about 3 years, the subject matter expert for IBM. Jungle Boy J on IRC. I think that's it.
It's going to be a tough intro to talk, but I'm Ryan McNair, IBM McNair on IRC. I've been working on Cinder for the past few months.
Next. Chris Morrell on IRC. I work with John at SolidFire, primarily on the Cinder
driver and the CI. Well, kind of.
I'm John Griffith. I'm a SolidFire.
So I'm Clinton Knight. Work on Cinder at Manila. I'm a core team reviewer on Manila.
I'm Chuck Fouts. I'm with NetApp. C Fouts on IRC. I've worked on Manila and Cinder.
I'm Mike Rooney, ME Rooney on IRC, Cinder, Manila, and occasional CI. Did I say that? Okay.
Yogesh Sirsagar, Yogi One on RC, work for NetApp QA on both Cinder and Manila.
Jose Porrua, I work with NetApp. I do QA for both Cinder and Manila.
Gerald McVerde, I work for IBM. I work on our OpenStack offerings on Power.
Julia Krieger, the Julia on IRC. I work for HPE and on all things Ironic-y.
Shreya, I work for EMC. I work on both Cinder and Manila.
Ben Swartzlander, eSports on IRC. I've been in it up for a while, worked on here for a while.
Eric Harney at Red Hat. I've been working on Cinder there for a couple of years.
Tom Barron. I recently started working at Red Hat. I'm T. Barron on IRC. Trying to figure out what I'm working on, I guess. But Cinder, little Manila.
So it's like you went through a thesaurus and pulled out every word that like slow or sluggish.
So to start, I took our topics and just put them in kind of a order in the different each day's Etherpad, just to have the topics there, but we can move things around if we want to talk a different topic. Just got them queued up, so we're flexible. So I guess to start, this was one of the topics in Etherpad disable old volume types. I don't know who put it there. Is there someone here that raised this topic?
I know the background on it.
Okay.
In fact, there's a lot of missing stuff.
Yeah, that's going to be an issue too.
I've actually had a couple of customers come back with this exact center.
No.
We go into their pre-production testing and stuff like that, and they set up a bunch of volume types. They want to be able to actually change those.
Is it like a type evacuation? Or
It's kind of silly, actually. I couldn't quite get my head wrapped around why. What they want to do is actually rename the type.
We've got this public stuff. What you can't do is set a public volume, not public.
But that's not what this is about. Well, it kind of is, I guess. So the idea here is, hey, I created a bunch of types and they're in use. I now want to call that type something else and change it. I want to be able to, my initial response. That's why.
Is there a reason why retype can't be used?
I didn't get it.
We had this come from, they wanted, the thing was is they didn't want to have volumes to a new type. Their main interest was in disabling use of the volume type and being able to get everybody moved to the new volume type. I think they were trying to do something with like hiding old volume types so that you could still have volumes that were using the old type, but you couldn't add new volumes with that type, and they didn't want to have to set the quota to 0 in order to disable adding additional volumes.
So they didn't want to implement it exactly what they wanted to do.
No. Were you on that issue? Or not? No. Okay.
So the problem is you can't modify the update quotas. You have existing volumes.
Yes.
So we have to find.
Yes.
One of those sucks.
Yeah.
I wouldn't rely on that. If they could make the time, probably the people who are just using it and put the for the 0, well, that's all the problem. I got the impression that the customers I talked to, and I wonder if we're all quite possible we are. I got the impression that no, that we're not. So what I did is I ended up script going to the
They're looking for like an enabled, disabled type.
So
It was something, that was one of them.
So my concern is you start going down those paths and everybody talking, oh, we'll do this with the quotas and then change this and then set this flag and stuff like that. You're making a really complex workflow for something that's actually kind of stupid. I mean, either, hey, here's a admin command to change the name of a type, or not. I mean,
They were happy with change.
That's what they want to do. At least that's the people like now. Actually, Jay may have some other information. It sounds like he's got people that the in-use ones to not change.
Yeah, they wanted to migrate over, like they had a, well, maybe changing the name would work too, but it was a, like volume type that they're using. They wanted to move to production, get the volumes off of using the production.
So I think maybe we should gather all the different requirements and stuff like that and come up with a simple solution. But I think we also need to remember that we can say no.
Yeah.
Because
edit the volume type name now. I thought we.
So feature.
Why?
Just change.
There's a change in Liberty, I believe, that we add changing the name.
Yeah.
And the description.
Yeah, you can change the name and description. I mean.
Well, so okay. Well, then I guess it's existing volume.
Just an ID. Yeah, it's an ID. It's available. I know the UI guys added that the ability for us.
You're going to make me get on my soapbox about paying.
Well, I mean, if that's what the customer sees as a name, they don't see an ID. If they want gold to be changed to something else, they can change it.
So I guess the only question is, what happens to? See, I think that's really good, right? Because I'll have to look at the code and see what it does. But then you're going to, since that's a back reference, you're going to change all these people that have volumes of a type with a name. All of a sudden, that type.
That's what the admin's asking to do.
Yeah, that's what they want to do. No, because that's what Jay was saying. They want people that actually have volume type 2 then they create type, which I don't understand if you into that, but they change the name of the type, but they want the people with the existing volumes to keep that type and keep that quota. Now the old stuff.
Well, that was
I'm not, I'm just trying to clarify that. That's what I get what you're saying.
that is what I said, but their end goal was to get people off of a volume type name beta that they were using as prep for trying out a new backend, get to a production type name that wasn't beta. So I think if they're able to use the volume type, that may their need.
So here's a command for Cinder type update. Change the name of the volume description and it is public. What's missing there?
I don't think anything.
I
think that solves this.
Quite frankly, I don't get it. I just could retype the volume. When that's done,
Yeah, but if you,
volume
you got 100, yeah, you could write a script.
What John was really describing was some type of volume that, I mean, that's what's, just by type A, if type B, replace type A with, are we going to use type B? No. That's what came through.
No, it wasn't that complicated.
Okay.
I made it more complicated.
It sounds like a script
That's what I think actually wants to be.
If you're actually changing the things underneath, if you're changing extra specs, if you're changing QoS settings or something, yeah, then you go retype. But if they just want to change the name from gold beta to gold, the API allows them to do that.
If you just want to rename it, otherwise, the extra specs.
I think that's what this is. And then
It's the problem that we don't know.
That's kind of
For once, I mean, we don't even know who put that up there, so maybe that's something that needs more.
yeah, I think
They could file a bug and maybe describe it that way.
Yeah. Are you taking this, Jay? Could you put just a note there? Customer asked for this again, and this doesn't meet their needs to file a bug, just so we have a note in there that maybe someone will see that. So I think we do need more details, specific use case from an end user, why what we have right now.
that's API to update.
I got that up there.
Good enough for that. Then let's move on. Volume level encryption with user-defined encryption keys. Is the person who added this topic here?
That would be us.
All right.
Go ahead.
Give some background.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you have more background than me, but basically, we were getting asked by Software to, instead of the current encryption where a new encryption key is generated per volume, to allow user-specified keys to do volume encryption.
We had in Google have a way of doing this where you put the volume, the encryption key in a header for upload procedure.
Yeah.
I'll be looking at now. So that's a neat idea. Do that still for me. I don't know what you mean.
I would need to take a look at that, but I think that does, and like I said, I don't have a ton of information on it. Basically, all we got is that Software wants the ability for user-defined keys as opposed to just generated for each volume.
But do they want in the road, whatever, to store the key, or do they want to use it to take care of storing the key and pass it on that request? They're two very different scenarios.
Yeah.
The usual read, like the only read I've come across the user-defined key, you don't want to send storing it. That's the next operation.
Yes, I think that's where they want to go with it.
Just say that again, Duncan. So Google had a solution where they put the key in the.
So when you do an attach request, any request that needs access to data on the thing, you put the key material in a header for the request. So you do Cinder attach, or no, but you do an attach with an X material header that each of the key for the volume. So Cinder never needs to store that. Nova never needs to store it. You can use it for operating.
See, and that seems more secure than users being able to provide keys, but.
Yeah, that's definitely, I think that's good enough to look into. I didn't.
And I don't see any point of the user providing the key in it that it's just going to store it.
Yeah.
You might as well have one to generate it.
Okay.
And every other operation we take that's line having a lot. You get collaboration, all of it.
That's okay.
Develop to do that.
Yeah. Because as long as there's a flag on the volume that says you need to do this, and you reject the API if they haven't.
Right.
They're going to want a big one.
Probably, but. Yeah,
or do we just do that by the side like we normally do, and they get what they get? I would certainly start my business by the time because otherwise you're hanging even more back days on and it's giving support to them.
I think this comes back to kind of what I don't know if you saw the note I sent yesterday, but summarized was we need to maybe better educate them on what Cinder is currently doing.
Yeah, but
This is a cross-project discussion, I think. You need to get Nova folks involved with this, as well as Ironic as well. Every API call for the meeting that you're going to need past that, which is a completely new API parameter for almost a lot of functions in Nova.
Yeah, but and that's helpful to know about the the possible solution that the other people were working on that we can look into. I mean, I think that's good enough on this from my point of view.
Yeah.
Well, common Cinder comp settings express SSL warning.
Yeah. So this has been something that I wanted to do for a long time because Patrick has a driver that uses a request, and we switched both of our clients to use the request library. And of course, if you don't use a signed certificate, then you get boatloads of junk, basically warnings in all the log files. And I kind of thought it made sense to have some common name that everyone could use in their drivers to disable it, so we don't all have different names for the same thing. But where do we put that usage of disabling it? I put it in the volume manager, which seems to work for everyone, but John had suggestions, so I thought it would be good to bring it here and talk about, does this make sense for you to do this, where it's involved, and all that. I don't have a huge idea of where it should be, but I would like to have a common name that everyone uses. Because
part of the question was making it a common thing that's not actually common because not everyone does use it. So a lot of us do.
A lot of us do, yeah. So I guess the name of the current comp, I have requests in it, but that's not obvious in the request library.
Well, I'll give you the generic name.
Sorry?
I suspect you might want to keyboard send it driver.
I suppose so, yeah.
So I think it's a good idea and it's good to have. I was thinking just have something like that. Okay. The only thing that I didn't like about that patch was putting it in the manager layer and having it be a global would impact every driver. And not only that, I think, if I remember right, the way it was written, it'll impact any service running on that system.
It'll impact the Cinder volume service for that driver. You have to activate on setting in the driver instance declaration in Cinder.com.
It's per driver.
It's per driver.
So
Yeah, it's not global to all
As long as
Cinder
it's per
volumes.
driver.
Even though it's in the manual.
Yeah. When the manager starts up, it looks for it, and if you don't put it in the driver block, it doesn't see it. I tried that, and it didn't. I tried putting it out in the default section, and it never saw it. I had to put it in the driver section.
Yeah, that's the old problem.
LVM and the.
Didn't patching fix that in the end? That we had defaults and something else common or some of the section we talked about, so maybe it's broken.
I thought request though, when you disabled warnings for requests, it was process wide. You can't have one driver using requests and suppressing it in one.
That's the problem.
You can because each driver is got its own preference.
Yeah, that's
So as long as you don't read the setting of what you've done before, you're okay.
Yeah, I think it's in it.
Let's see how this put it on in the volume service.
I believe so. Yeah,
so
just the volume manager. So
it's before it loads the driver, but like
after
it's for it. After it does it.
Yeah.
So we.
Yes.
Yeah.
All the keys.
Yeah, we have to make sure.
That was my big concern, was stepping on something that we had.
Well, if we have a generic config option, it's like disable install warning, would it also disable it? Well, there's
I don't
yeah, so maybe we should be like disable driver SSL warning?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's up to you. I'm not going to object to it. I also think that, so I think there's like 4 drivers that use this. Although it may be more, I guess, 1 of the drivers per vendor. I mean, the other thing is we could just write, either people put it in their driver, or write your own wrapper in the driver. I mean, I've had one in mind for, right? It's not.
We can still just have a shared config option.
We'll try and check and driver.
Yeah, and we can still have a generic ability to do it.
Yeah.
So is the purpose of that is to not disable the keystone portion of it? Because if it's on a per process, then that doesn't solve it.
Yeah, I don't know if it matters. Like I said.
Okay, so maybe you guys can test it, see what you think. I just put it out there as a, hey, let's raise the discussion, not,
I can't test it because I'm already.
You're already squashing it.
I can change it.
We have our driver-specific config options.
Yeah, and that I could easily see that exploding, everyone having their own. And
Yeah.
Yeah. It's for fixing the same problem.
But what I was saying was just build a decorator in the util file, and then just have people import that util and wrap their request on that decorator.
It's hard though, and like for us, we use like pure storage sign-on module.
Let's see, that's you get that's library. No, that's valid.
Well, I could go change the library to do it.
No, you're right. That's
Unfortunately, there's no way to suppress one request. You have to suppress it by the URL 3 globally.
So you don't have to.
Okay.
So there's another method. So I don't know if you saw it in review. There's another method to do that, where you actually do a try-catch block around the request. Then you use request forms module. You actually inspect it and then decide what to do on the result. So you could do something. I'm not saying you should. But
And then putting all of that in the decorator and applying that.
yeah, but then that won't work for you or Patrick.
Yeah, because we pass ours.
You guys libraries, and I think others are working on it. So, okay.
Well, I think we all want it. It's just what to call it and how to.
I'll give it. I'll see if I can find some.
Okay, that'd be great.
The other thing is, I couldn't get that method to work. It's documented on this how you do it.
Yeah,
I couldn't get that to work. Crap.
Platform. Wait, isn't? Yeah, if I try and that will get what's that? Like that.
Oh, maybe that's it. Oh, interesting. Not sure. Now,
Which
there
almost everyone has. Right. It's constantly playing.
there's a bug out. Not using
People I've No, I like it. With the way you have the pad right now, having the warning log that there is some sign of not spamming while
It's hard to debug it.
Yeah,
That
was why we added it in our driver. It was ridiculous.
We're going to look for create a lot of expansion.
Yeah.
Take a lot of people do have a lot.
Yeah.
Every single request.
Yeah.
Times 3. Yeah.
That's kind of how
the
the
thing I like about that. Sort of. Well, the difference was you can't. You can have a loop. Paradigm log it once.
They like the kernel.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just love.
You're right.
There was a patch, there was something filed against the request library itself saying there should be some way to configure it to do that, but just logging once. And I think it was shot down that they thought it was too much of a security risk.
Yeah, that patch has been out there for that PR was out for like 2 years or something.
Yeah.
I think the people that work on this question.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You could put another log warning in volume. You get warned about it every seconds. It's the same. It's the same. Still the same. I know. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. So, John, you're going to try out the patch and see if it works.
Sure. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything at the top there?
Put a note on there saying action items saying another minute. I will, honestly, by the end of the day.
We need Etherpad props that we can capture a nice list at the end of here all the action.
That's Jay's stuff. Additionally, Jay's always How did you, are you still secretary? Or?
That's how I keep myself paying attention.
I didn't know if it was you that was typing
Yep,
or not.
still is.
No, because anytime I say anything, it shows up on there.
And now we have video back up.
Yeah, we got video.
Yeah, nobody can scroll through video as much.
God, remember up for the whole evening. That was terrible.
Okay, nested quota.
It's like 9 in the morning. He's already signed.
Yeah, so we've been on the Eastern side. There was issues with the ability to get a project if you're not an admin, and I think a patch just landed for that. That will help that particular issue. But I've been going through, and at every layer, it's just like new badness. And like right now, I was trying. It's also broken for if you try and use like -1 at all, or basically saying unlimited quota, share with your parent. Hypothetically, that should work. That's not. It just doesn't work currently, and I was going through trying to fix that up, but going down that route, if we're going to support saying, a child quota can be -1, which I think is useful, and the ability to sort of model things and, share resources among children, then we're going to have to, like, currently the code doesn't do any type of, like, recursing through the parent to check, to do some type of reservation on, the parent's quota and see if it's valid. And, right now we actually don't enforce any of that when we're doing things like that. And so I've been going through, and I have some code to improve this stuff, but it's also trying to any ideas of if the current route we're going down is a good one, or also if it's going to be a total nightmare trying to do this shared quota where we need to recurse through parents, which could also have unlimited quota set, and you basically need to go through and tally those up on your way to deciding if you can allow a volume to be created.
I put that into that. It's broken so many things. I resisted the attempt trying to just reverse. Totally broken.
Yeah, I mean it's busted for Liberty, in just basically completely. But I think it
breaks basic non-nested code as well.
Yeah. I mean you're right, and I think we've at least fixed some of the places that it's broken. But yeah, at this point it's not in good shape. It's something that is useful, and we have so trying to go through and fix it up. Future, yeah, it's.
We get tests. I don't know if that's something that normally a test where we actually tell people how it's works. With that will go through, create some nested projects, set the different points of focus you come up and down the track, and actually check that it's getting the expected successes or failures.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the things is when you discuss this with three different people and all got something different expectations, in the end, the ultimate form of the expectation is this is where we should look.
Yeah, and so, yeah, I wasn't able to find any Tempest coverage or any functional test on that. Yeah, and so, that's, I'll go through and work on that, but it's also, what are our expectations. Like, in my mind, it seems reasonable to support things like -1 as a limit, as a way of sharing. But then, that basically means, I think by default, nesting and you can change that setting, and then, if you're sharing among all those resources, you might be, when you're trying to reserve a volume, you're going to basically need to go through, continue up the chain, all the way, and
that's okay as long as it doesn't give you up the chain or make any extra normal use. People who make crazy nested hierarchies.
Oh, okay.
Taking a hit is less bad than everybody taking a hit so that somebody can do something.
Yeah, and this would only,
Although ideally you put a calling key code that tell me everything that you do.
Sorry, what?
Ideally if you have a calling key code that says tell me everything including my parent focus and give me all the info I need on go.
Yeah, well currently actually realize when you do a get project, you get the entire hierarchy. So you are able to get your list of, everybody's, your entire parent tree and child tree. So you get that in one call, but then, on the Cinder side, you still need to go through and grab the quotas for all of them individually right now.
So that's any JSON part.
Sorry.
Well, you have to do a get quota call for it.
Yeah. But so I've been working. I've been poking some of the people who wrote the nested quotas.
Yeah, they might not be the.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think right now they're basically going down, trying to add the same way. They're going to run into the so, I -1 a few patches until we clear this up. But I think we're sort of, as far as I know, we're blazing the trail on this.
Well, so I think there's still a bit of activity on the other side and on the east side on this.
Okay.
It might be, and I could be wrong, maybe it's all died off, but it might at least be worth reaching out to the John Garland and asking, hey, is anybody working on it on our side? Because it'd be nice if we actually work with 3 parties together to do it right, that something that works the same for everybody.
Yeah,
and if they're not interested, then cool.
The other scary part is clients trying to do this well, they're facing a problem. And we said, whoa, don't do that yet.
Do you want to put that on the agenda for talking it over tomorrow? No.
Sure, yeah.
Oh, that's right. Is John going to dial in tomorrow?
Yeah, supposedly at 9 a.m. tomorrow we're going to sync those guys.
You can do that, and I'll try and, I have some, work in progress, just like a prototype of what this might look like, fixing some of the stuff up. Not that it's, we might still want to rip it apart.
Yeah, sure.
But this would at least get us closer for the future.
Just be nice for something like
Definitely, and right now, and we could get to check on that. From right now, the feeling I get, that people want to be involved. The fact that Cinder has nested quotas, but as of now, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. That felt good to vent, so. That's why I came, so.
I mean, but are there
Probably talk to the Keystone people also, because I think if you're using hierarchical projects, you're probably pretty interested in setting up quotas in some sensible way.
Good.
So, going there.
From there.
He's on there.
Yeah, he's moving to the airport right now.
I didn't minus one because everyone else had used it, and I'm like, well. I did eventually, but
you can log it, get the package, but changing any of the behavior. That's not log it. Actually, moving it.
No.
I didn't like the idea. Oh. They go to use them.
Switch to. Okay.
Take it. You probably get a good deal on for this. This goes right. Wait, this is WebEx, right?
Right. So then, we as a community start moving stuff in there to help that effort. Fill it in once released to help the other kids manage different applications and
Use the old one, we can volunteers.
that's the problem.
I think that is the right answer. I think we need to help you there. But I did amend my comments on it there. My plus one on that. I think it makes sense.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Right. So.
Well, I take for higher learning. Leave the meeting. Click line like. Don't need to state in there. For production. Yeah. Do it. Fine. Yeah. So plug in the easy thing for me.
Build and share.
They are. It's just a CLI if they want to get rid of. I don't think it's a good idea.
Not right now.
No.
Into OSC.
Oh, we all see it.
Yeah.
Well, they already have.
Shell function for everything that we already. And once we feature parity, then we.
Don't you make more sense? Well, that's removed that. Having. Come on. type of system like that. There's some trouble there. Well, it won't copy or anything.
There's some.
If we can, keep it on. Everything is we play. Oh, I agree. We're good. Still have to edit. Like if we set your API and yeah, with OSC. So the right. OSC. Yeah. And we make sure. I don't know how you. That's what it is. I mean, we already do all that. Part. That's a good way to go. Yeah. I think they're here. I guess I'm not really funny. Okay, keep in mind too. We're using all the new, which completely changed. But it's not like maybe I'm not. Keep talking about just copying this code. We have something, but you can find whatever you want. So we do equipment. In like, you know, OSC. Oh, yeah. So that's one of the biggest concerns. That's hard, right? Where you have all added in the project, or whatever, and it doesn't show up in the eyes of the release. That's exactly what we have here. That is a concern. Yeah. Correct. And we don't come off like so I it would be nice to figure out what we need before we this application. We can't move forward. Because our problem is that's for us to maintain. That's what we're over. You might do a thing. That was my issue regarding the I kind of like it. Might have that. Josh.
Patch up. Out of your comment. This game put up. 243, 25. And that's it. Oh, that's the one wall. Same comment. Yeah, this one. No, but I was saying you.
It is already. Top.
I'm in Snuttle.
That streams are out that door.
That copy to
Yeah, and that copy's out, by the way.
The espresso machine.
Maybe. Yeah. No more coffee. The old.
All settled in. Excellent.
Guy that takes the.
That's why I always say no extension cable.
But I have my extension cable, but yeah. I figure it would be like
They had like
events specifically for this reason.
Yeah. We'll probably burn out the power.
I wish they had one of these that was like a,
I mean, they
foot long
had
or something,
them.
right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't need a like 8-foot cable to do
Yeah,
this.
yeah. I'll say we should have one too. No. Power cords. 2 tons.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Hey Ron. Ron McCurdy. Nice to meet you. No, you're in Austin too, right?
I am.
Okay. Actually, I think I saw you at those get-togethers on the 6th floor.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's where. Yeah, I'm in. Are you in it?
5?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you work on from there?
I work on the RBC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is too cool. Well, okay, so Austin is a bit warmer. Are you an Austin native?
No.
Transplant?
Yeah, from New Jersey.
Oh, you probably don't like the heat.
No, but it's not too terrible. You just, like...
This wasn't a bad time. Did you just move here?
Yeah, I've been here 2.5 years, but
Oh,
I got here like just after the one terrible summer.
You got here after the
Yeah.
We had 100 days.
That's what I heard. I was very worried. Yeah, but then, so, I mean, you just go in the winter. Like, you don't just walk inside. It's like, you know, you really want a purpose.
Well, I jogging at lunchtime.
Yeah, that's
so it's really, it's one way to be accustomed.
Yeah,
Just have to make sure you drink enough.
It doesn't really bother me, but I wouldn't want to go for a run and I'm not there yet. But it is nice, you know, that there's so many places.
2 flights yesterday, 2 delays.
Sure you don't want full fire. Oh, that. So I mean, I'm not. Oh yeah, yeah. I've been there a few times. I'm
Bigger than the
not
bottles you brought.
a distance, but yeah. I mean it's nice in general. That'll cool you down in the summer. It's real fast.
Well, I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
It just increases the.
Yeah, it's vibrant at this point. It's flourishing for sure.
I notice once UT is in, traveling on I-35 is
Yeah,
it's hard to begin with. It just gets a lot worse.
Yeah, I stick to OPAC, which is not too much better, but it's still better. It's not.
A what?
Bisque. No, like fast biscuit.
Yeah.
Put some fireball in.
I got a whole bottle of back there.
Are you going?
Coming soon. I'm close to 6.
I wonder if this one just
How
just got milk sitting in the front there.
Yeah. When you're running out, puking in about 10 minutes. Yeah. Oh, there's, yeah, we have espresso machines. They want to help you. Nobody would.
But I mean, I can these days.
Some of those, like,
You know, it's just how
the trucks.
Yeah. It's not the correct one. A little round. Yeah, they kind of look like coffee. Like,
Yeah.
We have one. It's got a milk steamer on it. They have these little like disposable things.
Yeah, the ones we have is literally like pour milk in, you know, and it's not refrigerated.
Oh god.
You know, so and then
Yeah. The ones we have, you like put the milk in your top, put it in the thing, whether or not there's the extra.
Yeah,
Makes it fast, so that it's not easy, right?
So then.
If you went to UT.
Alright. Not really. A lot of our like marketing
Yeah.
Oh,
No, I'm
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Now they have like a legal process.
Yeah, they made it like
Probably.
I was gonna say,
the whole, the whole way of saying
I'm already good.
From the school's perspective of that, you're all that,
I know a little bit. So
the whole thing, how it's less than ideal, but it'll be alright. But, yeah, UT.
Kind of.
I guess it's like 5.
Yeah.
You're really.
Smith.
Yeah.
Director to improve it.
So what I do now is what? I did it in So I talked to him. He said that you would get slow.
Yeah.
You're gonna.
Yeah.
Lawyers that found Patrick.
Oh, that guy's he's gone. Oh, that's why they. Basically, they were like razors going to work on my they were like, you guys
Oh, nice! Now, if you're on GPL, you're happy.
Now we're going to talk about that.
So hold on.
So I
GW white money. Do whatever the hell you want. It explicitly states it says do whatever the hell you want.
But I'd be happy to try and help out. I can help with some get my hands dirty.
He got. He was
Where? Slide here. Okay. You're right, or you want to delete at all.
Well, that's good.
That's where I came through too, but you know, a lot of people got the East Coast.
On top of these, like,
Yeah, by then, hopefully it will have mellowed out a bit. How long? Late is that? Once, and you didn't have too much layover in Atlanta, that would be really good. You know, you end up waiting for hours for a 1 hour, and I think you're. Yeah. So we're trying to find that balance between, you know, I don't want to see something here, but I also don't want to miss my flight and be stuck at the airport. Either way.
So that's the thing is.
Austin. I'm originally from New Jersey, but now live in Austin. So that's where I was coming from. Are you gonna be able to come to the summit? You think? Yeah. Have you been to Austin? Yeah, it's I would recommend. Yeah. Get down there. Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah.
The biggest thing for all.
Yeah. Yeah, they're a little different places, but Austin is a lot of, you can make it out. Yeah. Was it just? I've heard good things. Problem solved. That sounds nice because not very exotic to me. I was actually I did just like a few years now. Or something. Something. Definitely don't. Hong Kong. It's pretty places, and then Austin. It's the auto where it? So where
The first time.
It's a long time. What? So mine is hard as well. And it'll stay cold for a while. That's it. Not until the summer before you really. It's like town. I mean, that's cold. I don't know. I don't like that. It's weird for it to be, it's like 60 in Austin right now. 60 degrees. It's just cold.
So now I have Thunderbird all set up. Right now I can
Feels weird.
and then here it won't allow me to connect to these engines. I through your Wi-Fi. Really? Yeah. Oh.
How long have you been?
I got a bunch of.
I get them on my phone regardless. That's weird. So it's kind of like
Yeah, it's kind of annoying. You're cracking down on ours because we feel like our dual stuff is very easy to get some single sign on.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So like, that's my idea. It's pretty cool actually. I don't have to remember.
Not great if you just get it in.
We've got like email, like our recruiting, like interview stuff, Slack, Zoom. I don't even know what these things are. All of our like our HR crap. But they cut it down and like remember you and like you can sign in and sign in somewhere else. Now you have to put my name and password every time.
You want to go to one of those when you're My bank just went literally just all my. I like this.
Why am I so bad at this game? Did it? Have you drank enough now?
It's like, oh no, you gotta like do all this bill pay because they're going to this new thing. You know, all your automated bills, and you're gonna get them remote now. I didn't even know. Now I can't even get in the system. And yeah, they wanted me to do the thing, log in, stuff like that shit. Okay, give me your, you know, do you want an email or just get in to verify? Like the poor computer is 5 computers on my phone.
Seriously.
It's like shit.
Lunchtime. Almost movie work.
I'll enjoy my weekend.
Yeah, I just can't.
Curious.
It's like, change that to another 3 months or so before you get your money.
Yeah. It is still like above my strike price.
Yeah, like it's not worth the effort and the tax to fill out the tax.
What I'd probably do at this point is exercise the options and just like sit on them. Go for that like hold on for years. Right?
Yeah.
That's fine. I mean, my wife.
I didn't really notice, but I figured. Yeah. Also, should have just played.
You have like double whatever. I mean, we have over 40 years.
Yeah, but
they give you 10 shares.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
Yeah, I'm hoping, I mean, also like, I think by the time of the point where we like get out of our blackout period, we'll have another like one earnings call.
Yeah, there's no issue.
I guess that's making it extra.
Well, I knew about it. I knew about this.
Change.
And there's explaining the thing.
Emails to like have like every single
Or at least let me do something really nice and quietly. No, I'm good.
API might.
So API Maker has had some review. Got I passed it in there. I just wanted to bring it up. Prioritize. Missing right now. So a couple things would be use as a reviewer and know that and not work it out. Yeah, that tested. I've been over that. That's also been Mike said you can test it. I don't know. Right, that date is off. There's a here for some girl command tested. They have hash works. We do that. I think you do. That's really good. Then you said you spoke overview. Just a look. Okay. Late. And then the second group with code that uses microversions.
Yeah, so the theory there is point of microversions is if you're talking to something which isn't going to work, microversions allows the server to detect that and give you an appropriate error. But if you implement microversions, you don't change the URL. If someone uses free microversions client, there's no mechanism to detect that fact. So you could have started adding new versions, something, and the client will send a request, and the server will.
The server should, and the way it's implemented, it'll fall back to 2.0 current version, lowest supported version. So if a client doesn't know anything about microversion, if you use an old client, the server will do the right thing and give you exactly what we have today with no new microversion functions.
How long will that be supported?
Forever. I mean, that's what get cross-server session in Tokyo about. Can we deprecate? Consider deprecate V1 API. Can anyone deprecate an API? The consensus was no. There's just people out there that are going to be languishing. We just have to support API versions forever. Certainly, that's what's going to happen with microversions. Lowest level that we have today, which is 2.0.
Maybe that makes sense. So maybe the problem is the new client talks to an old server. What will happen is that it will send the request with the microversion type. The server will and what it was.
It shouldn't have a response saying, here's the date, this microversion. So that's get that.
It's talking to the
older servers won't be fine with that.
I'll have to go back to my client patch, but
I think that's the wrong, unless I'm misunderstanding, I think that's the wrong way to do it anyway. So I think that if I'm a client and I send a request and I specify version 5, the service is only work up to 4. It should respond with an error. It shouldn't say, oh, well, I'll just give you what I have.
It does respond with an error. The client has to respond. My client has no minimum.
No, I understand. I'm just going back to what you guys now you're saying the opposite. A second ago, you guys were saying that it's going to respond with.
Pretty much.
No. Liberty in your server.
So the idea behind I only want to talk to you what I can. I don't really understand what I'm talking about. I have to talk with. I explicitly call the lower version. Well, I can't talk. That's the equivalent of the guy.
I get why then. I guess I'm resistant to doing it because then we have a lot of implications with sort of getting Nova to adopt a new API, a new URL. This would essentially be a V3 API, or you can call it 2.1 if you want, but that's
yeah. And everyone will start using it for 3 releases.
That's well, but the problem is if you don't force them to do that, you'll end up in this gray area where they're kind of using it, kind of not using it. Won't know which requests microversion, which ones aren't. So you can pretend, yeah, they're using the new API, but you'll never really know.
The client is the one who's making the request. Nobody really does know.
Nobody can get into a minimum client. So our newest client, 27 or whatever we're at, will have microversion support. And if you have an older Nova that has an older client, it won't put the header in. It won't ask for microversions and it won't get it.
The danger is a very, very new Nova from 3 years in the future talking to a modern, today's version of Cinder and getting weird results. Like, well, no, maybe that would never happen, but the whole point is.
Does the response you get back will have that much of a template, the response? Well, no,
Use it, and then write it. That's what it's supposed to do.
But the scenario he was discussing was actually the opposite of that. Right? What you're saying is a future Nova and a current Cinder. So a future Nova that knows about microversions or whatever. Yeah. And today's Cinder. But in that case, the call would just, it should probably just fail unless the Nova version explicitly says use this version. If at some point in the future Nova decides to depend on some minimum version, they can't go over than that. But they run that against Liberty Cinder. What they'll get is weird behavior.
Well, that's it. Nova has to touch it. So Nova has to basically say try, use new thing, and accept, fall back and do old thing.
Isn't that kind of what they're doing anyway?
Was that?
Isn't that what they're already planning anyway, based on the posture?
Yes, that's exactly how we'll have to implement it. I mean, this is a lot of this is to do a better Cinder Nova API, so that we can have all the monitoring. Nova setting Cinder database state and Nova checking Cinder state 5 times on these things. In order to do that, this is the path. Try new thing, and if that fails, fall back to old thing.
Okay, I guess that that just pushes more work into the client to look at the microversion that came back, and if it is not, and when you expected something, the client has to
be smart
and say what you wanted can't be done.
But that's the client.
I'll have to think about it. Gosh,
if you have time, you know, maybe go and see it. If you have a major gotcha at the high level, you can.
Well, the way we address that problem is to figure out probably this way.
Yeah.
If you will get HTTP 404 if you ask for the new version on the server. It's really obvious what happened there. If you're diligent about checking that something came back in the header,
let us know. 'Cause I guess I resist adding new URL that now we have to.
Isn't this what Melvin did? Because they were going to call it V3 and they chucked that. That's
They created a URL called v2.1.
They did 2.1.
That's what they do. Even though the actual microversion is 2.x, the URL is 2.1, which is really gross. Which is why we just, we're going to go to the next version. It's stupid. I would advocate going for V3, but it sounds like a plan that we're using too, as long as the plan is smart.
At the time that right now, it checks if it is support that version. If someone has a question, a higher version, like that should work.
I tested it, but use more eyes, more thought. Anyway, it's more about want the reviewing who, should we block searching on what.
I think we need to try and get this to land pretty soon if we're going to do it in this release. So the sooner the better. I mean, we've been talking about this Tokyo. We're hoping to get it in before M1. A lot of reasons. So I would like to get people looking at it.
They said it was smoke tests.
Yeah.
Said one was it's funny stuff done in different parts of the world, but the detailed stuff doesn't need it now.
Right. I plan on firing up multi-tabs without migration. Worst case scenarios.
You said you have tested it, so that is a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a dev stack of this actual public line version and public server version of that work. Do we have any open patches that make API changes that we can rebase on top of this as a micro change and see what the new view looks like? That's my thing. I'll have a look at the bug and see if it's similar API bug missing code.
Even if it's not fully tested by everyone, probably better to get it in there and have it available. So
Let it blow up
easier
before
for
people
people.
see
Yeah.
it. Fix it. I don't necessarily want to do it that way because that's better than merging it or
They also do some kind of functional with the base test. Without testing base, you'll be broken sooner or later.
So that's my next task. Is there's Matt pointed me to a bunch of Tempest specs and some tests that Nova merged in, and I think Nova's now testing microversions. And so I'll just start down that path. I ran Tempest manually, but it needs to be see on it, so I'll be doing that.
Somebody was not much about goal, and they know that all suffers. The version of remember it's a version.
So, Eric, we were talking last night about multi-attach, when it's passing the hosted, that is going to cause problems for old user servers, right? Was it a thing that we
It already does.
Right. But is that something
You were, you were there.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if we have a new Cinder client, we can get Nova into the new Cinder client.
Well, the Cinder client has always exposed the ability to pass it. Nova just never said. That's the problem.
Well, we used to have the code in that with error.
Error if you try to go.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just wondering
That's
if
the issue now.
I'm just wondering if when we get microversions in, we can put the logic in. It's already.
We might have to change that because we broke the backwards compatibility. Now, new Nova against old Cinder, they try to pass both those in, and it blows up. cleaner if we could do a micro version that will be probably works as before, but just under
Right, awesome.
That would be but I'm not sure about the timing of this.
The old standard, they would have to disable multi-touch.
Are they now only sending both in the multi-touch case? Yeah,
It's all
we have
about-
services going on.
Yeah, multi-touch.
It's well, that's something to think about. I was thinking last night we can solve that problem. But they have to change though to sort of try to do this. If it doesn't work, go back to old drop one of those. Can't have that catch.
Yeah, this goes back to one of the original issues that we had with how Nova calls. They just call it, blows up, they just plug all the way up, and there's no managing of those exceptions that have to fall. And we all said, well, that's fine. And someone should fix it.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll mull that over as a potential solution to that big breakage. It's great to get this thing put the dry blocks in and then put that back. We have to get this merged fast enough to have good support so that when they do the merge, yeah.
Right.
Anybody else? Anybody issues with this or?
So, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I'm completely following, but I am curious of how this is going to be tested, because right now we've exposed the fact that we don't test in the gate, in the official OpenStack gates. We don't test things like this. We don't test appropriately, which is a problem. So I'd like to at least have a plan going forward how we're going to make sure we don't continue to break things like we just did.
Absolutely. Well, I'll start looking at the Nova implementation in Tempest to test this and do the same for us, basically. Start getting the patches merged in, have Tempest run, start unloading.
So
as far as this problem that just blew up, that this is not going to solve that. I mean, that
We can do it demo, or we can introduce functional integration based inside cinder.
Well, so then we go back to that, right? And maybe that's where we need to be focusing some of our efforts. That's the stuff. I'm saying, so my concern is, what I'm trying to say, is the problem that we just exposed and that we just created, once you do the microversioning stuff, the potential for that sort of problem is going to increase exponentially. So, in my opinion, before we even go down the path of doing the microversioning and stuff like that, we need to be figuring out what's our test strategy, how are we going to test this, and have those things in place before we merge another line of code.
I remember the problem. So if what you rely on is in the return, looking at the microversion headers, the problem is if you're doing an action that changes something, you send parameters, like you've got microversion 2.40 and you expect the server to either do what you asked for or reject the operation. An old server will just ignore the things that it doesn't understand.
Oh, that's right.
It'll do something. It'll just do something, and then tell you, and then it'll just respond to you. Okay, I did what you asked. But what it actually did was different than what you expected because you passed some extra arguments expecting some new behavior
That were ignored.
Just ignore those and go off and do what it wanted. So the problem is unless you have like a special API that you can call first to determine that, and then
you basically have to do, before every call that did something, you have to check, is it an old server or not? And if so, then send something else.
And you can do that in the client, but you can't do that.
Except the microversions are discovered at,
Not at every API call, right? It's at when the client is constructed, I believe. If I remember.
you know, because you can send, you can request any version you want.
I don't think I put this in the client yet, but somebody, maybe it's ironic, somebody
I
did
think
a.
Delta did something like that. When we looked in the client code, we had to do that.
You discover it and you kind of cache that using.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, what we've decided that we will only ever support 1.6 as the command line. And if anyone ever wants to do anything else, they have to find a newer version.
So, hey Ben, what if in the endpoint you specify the version as part of the endpoint URL for the call, instead of embedding it in the actual call itself, make it a part of the header, and then in the client or in Keystone or wherever, they can do the verification there and see if it's supported on the server and reject the call based on that.
Every microversion is a new URL.
Yeah.
That's totally doable. I think that's just sort of against the current pattern of Keystone expects things to work.
Yeah, but it sounds like there might be some flaws in the current pattern, right? I mean,
yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, the current pattern, you know, the major versions, V1, V2, then the URL is pretty bad. We were trying not to rock that, but we said, okay, we're just going to go with V2, and V2 is going to have microversions. We're going to do it the way Nova did it, doing headers, and sort of. The goal there was just trying to get what we wanted without changing everything else.
Or the other thing is just, do we need microversions? Can we just do version changes more quickly?
Well, what would that look like in Keystone? When you go to
Same thing. So I would be, well, so that's a problem, and I don't know.
So you get like 50 versions, right?
Yeah, I've never been able to figure out how that stuff works or how it's supposed to work.
Because Keystone is trying very hard to have no version at all of the catalog.
And that would be fantastic, right? In my opinion, that's how it should have been. So it should be just, here's the sender endpoint, and then I'm going to pass this header into the sender endpoint with a version number, and let sender figure out what to do with it. That's how it should have been in my first place. You know what I'm saying?
I would actually like that better.
Isn't that how the microversion implementation is? You're passing in a version in the header.
No. Like the way Nova did it is you just sorry. Yes, it's in the header. It's not the URL. The URL always says 2.1 in front of it. And then the actual version is in the header. John's suggestion, I think, would have been nicer, but it's not.
I didn't get what the difference was.
It's just changing the URL.
Oh, a different URL for
in the case of Cinder, you need to either change the header to convert the URL to be 2.1 or V3. You can't continue to use V2 because you will end up in a situation where some future client will send a request to create a volume with fancy super feature options, and that the existing server will just do the wrong thing and then say, oh, by the way, I did the old thing. Sorry about that.
You know, this is
actually, it'd be nice if you even did that.
It'll say I did it, and the client will say, oops, I didn't want you to do that.
And this is exactly why Jake is, because that client you're thinking, I want to create a volume. What you're really wanting is, I want a volume, I don't care how it gets done. And the client should have all the cases to handle all the different logic and all the service.
You can definitely put the logic in the client to prevent that problem. The problem is
you'll end up with
don't use the client.
No, even if you put all the logic in the client, you'll end up with having to make 2 round trips for every operation instead of 1 round trip.
No, that is not an act client creation for the microversion. Not every API call.
It has to be every API call, because the whole, at least
The
based on the
client
language.
Couldn't you catch it the way Ironic does?
No, because the whole point. Now,
Okay, yeah.
Ironic is
We let John talk for a second.
I understand what Ironic is doing, which totally makes sense. I mean, that might be their answer. But I thought, based on the discussions I had with Dean and some of the folks on the Nova side, the whole idea is they wanted to actually be able to specify whatever version of the API they wanted per call.
Yeah.
So they wanted to do this crazy. I mean, it's crazy. They want to be able to mix and match, do anything they want, or call multiple versions of it to get different levels of information.
From what I heard, sorry.
If you catch the highest level,
Yeah.
that's fine. The server has a max level score. As long as it's above that maximum version.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's fine. That's absolutely, yeah, I get that.
So you can specify the API version you're calling in the header without having to do any discovery, because you do the discovery of client rate.
You can't go higher.
And you know what you can't go higher than. But for every call you go lower than that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yep.
And I think that's what it does today, if I remember correctly, level one, then microversion was passed in like creation. And then discovery is done at every successive.
But then Scott's saying that's okay for the client, but there might be other.
Right, if you don't use the client, and then you do the scenario that Ben was talking about.
There's still two problems with that. One is if you have a stateless client like Slide, which has to discover the version every time you have a command, wasting at least one round trip for every command. If you do have a stateful client that stays alive for a long time and captures that information, it will get old. If someone like upgrades Cinder while your application is running, you'll have the wrong version information. You'll never find out that Cinder all of a sudden supports a new version.
Yes.
This is actually why the added support, right? Passing on the command line. What's the version? The user can say, I want this version.
Well, and somebody has a caching. Somebody has a caching mechanism. There's CLI client.
Yeah,
I thought.
There's people who have caching or whatever you think about that. Okay, I don't know. It's cheaper just to change the URL and get a flow when the service.
It makes sense. My only concern is that there's just the adoption of V2H. I know it's going to be a year, I think. So it just does push out changes.
Why? They're just going 5% of clients.
I don't know. I asked Mike. I don't think it was a long adoption process.
As long as the client hides the differences between V2 and V3, they should just know that we're using Cinder doing the right thing.
As much as it can. I mean, sometimes you can't use it, right? A new parameter that gets passed in.
Right, but in that case, they have to change their code anyways.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. I mean, and this is irrelevant, that whether we change the URL or not, they have to make a change in their code.
Yeah.
I don't know, it was certainly a lot of work for us to create a new URL. We had dealt with a number of tests and write a bunch of funky code. Deal with that.
That's doing all the other projects without that.
The other projects, as long as they're using the Python library, they should notice that it's changed.
The current one, you can turn off on discovery.
If Kevin has his own client, that one needs to be updated too. That's just a copy paste job.
On discovery, we have the problem with the kilo client turn off on the server. It was reverted, but it wasn't ever fixed after reverting.
Well, the fix required switch that in config at one point, because it's a problem if you load down to your giving the load down to your when the version that was not ready. So that's even if we decide something has to be done. For example,
So that may be. It's required to have a URL. It's required.
Like the event said, you would not mess with the version here.
But
if you want to request a specific version, you've got the URL with the version. You're going to call.
But then you also got Cinder doing things to everyone else.
Yeah.
Someday it's not going to be in the hospital library, or at least concept it will. So that's I'm just saying, it doesn't make sense for us to have our own implementation when everyone else is doing it.
So what did we decide? New URL or no?
Sounds like a new URL.
Yeah. So for the safety reasons, it sounds like not having a new URL has some potential problems.
Mine is fine. It's specific recommendation.
What are the downsides of the URL? Of putting in the URL?
Yeah, work and
We double check template test.
And then we're different from what other projects are.
Sounds like that's what Manila did.
I make work make it sound like I'm lazy here. But
Well, stop.
We all know you miss language.
Well, the other downside is the perception that Cinder has a done. We try to address that by clearly documenting that V2.0 is identical to 1. No, only 2.1.
which I think is what Nova did with 2.1 and 2.0. Like I said, the same thing, they're identical, but it's yeah.
Unfortunately, now I think that. So, why can't you do?
Except that it is
Small.
Except that there's a few.
the other thing is I'll get the testing work well documented. I don't know if we can decide here now whether there should be a tempest or also is there any feelings on that or
Yeah, I think Nova just added some tempest tests for this, so if it's easy
So
to
honestly,
convert.
I think for this, I think this is again, another perfect opportunity for us to do functional testing sometime sooner. I think that's where it should, I think this is what I should do.
Did someone sign up in Tokyo to write, are there functional tests? Do we add any yet?
I think someone said they would be the pioneers for the
Yeah, I thought.
Well, I already wrote it. I already submitted initial
Okay.
functional test.
I thought that was just fine.
Yeah. I thought I did that on Cinder as well. I don't think I did it on
Was it volume migration or something, Vincent? Were you looking to add functional tests for?
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought-
it's all Vincent's fault.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
They got moved to
I
unit
have
test.
the tempest test ready for quite a while, dedicated to retype and migration test for tempest. The guy is not going to accept it because so far all the CI tests only got one single node set up. They don't support like multiple backend or multiple nodes in their CI phase. It's that according to the rule, which is if your test is unable to run on our listed case or CI something, we won't accept your patch. So the next step I need to do is to trigger on a kind of multi-backend or multi-nodes to put into their kind of gate things.
That's what VMI migration I thought was adding.
That's something I actually need you guys' help for. I think it's kind of like in project config or something that's configuration thing. He told me that we used to have multiple nodes or multiple backend support in the CI gate, but later they just remove it, revert back to only one node and one backend, and they asked you about reason. I'm not sure if you still remember. I saw it on IRC with a kind of answer.
So the only discussion that I recall was with the demise of HP Cloud and going out to all these other clouds. There was a couple of new clouds being added to the CI infrastructure that didn't support multi-backend. But that should have nothing to do with what Tempest can do. That has to do with some limitations in some vendors' implementations. I won't name their names, but
Yeah, the guy is named Matthew Trinish, I believe. So we cannot merge this until we see it running in CI somewhere. Tempest tests are mostly self-validating, so to ensure it actually works and continue to work in the future, and we need to see it running. Sure. So that's why they want to test it patch so far. So,
can we look at third party CLI?
these are all the tests seen over here. It's all green, but they only test for one node, one single node, one backend. But my patch is for okay, I migrate from this back to that backend. So at least we need two backends supported, but do not and haven't not yet. So that's the reason why they won't accept it. They told me to that you need to trigger that kind of thing on. For example, you make a kind of, for example, you have one gate. For example, you.
Can we set up a third party CLI that's got all the backend?
Actually, they want it to be running on the page.
Only here, automatically, they want to do it over here.
Reject that for the same reason.
There's no reason you can't run multi-backend in the gate.
Instead of two backend.
I don't know why we can't do that.
If you stick the left side patching to set of several OVMs,
so it's a and the key is there has to be a Tempest config flag that says multi-backend enabled, so that if you don't have it, if you don't have two backends and the test requires two backends, you can get them. That's all already there.
Yeah, that's what they rejected.
So the only thing missing is the DevStack patch that actually sets it up in terms of.
No, that's there too. That's there. Okay. So if you look at pull up a gate run, a recent gate run, and look in the local.com, and DevStack is still setting everything, or in the cinder.com. DevStack is still setting it up as if it was using enabled backends. So it would just be a matter of appending it. And then if you look at the DevStack code,
but how many are actually created?
Right now there's only one.
But you can add a patch to that second one.
Sure.
And then,
well, that's just the task stuff.
Okay, so not to say this isn't important, but I'd like to wrap up the original thing here. Maybe this should be a topic, but so I have a question, which is, fine if this is a good candidate for functional test. Do we miss something if we don't do Tempest tests, or should there be some Tempest tests as well, or?
There should probably be a test for every version of the.
So what
if you're going to change a function to use a new version, you need
That's
the old version and the new version.
That's what Nova's doing. That's
the whole system in Tokyo is defining when you need it.
right. And the idea was if you're changing one method, that you test around that method before the version before it, the version after it. So that puts the burden on developers to kind of understand that that's needed to change that method. You're going to be messing with microversions anyway when you change it.
Muting Gorka.
Might be a good idea.
So I'm working on a patch right now that will at least introduce the functional test. So I'll have that in the next day or two. I think there's a misunderstanding. I don't think anybody's proposing all the Tempest tests get moved into Cinder. That's definitely not what we want to do. We don't want to do that. We just want to put some specialized Cinder only type tests. Okay. So you can install Cinder, Keystone, MySQL, just leave out all the others.
I mean, for functional tests, for example, so far, if we do it for API request, almost do the authentication from the Keystone. But if we want to have a first functional test for Cinder, how do I get rid of this dependency?
Well, you don't have to, is one thing. One thing is you don't necessarily have to get rid of that dependency. But you can also do some hackery and just import the API modules directly. All of them. Okay. I'm not saying that's the right thing. I'm saying there's all kinds of options.
Something we can so I mean, Keystone team, which we interested in, but I think it's not ahead. You've only got to take the Keystone as well. Because we're getting more and more code into the before you reach out context. You just got to take middleware that gives you a valid context and valid information in it, but don't need to do any authentication before we give you back the 10 answers.
The other thing is we can write fixtures to cover the pieces that you don't have. There's all kinds of stuff you can do.
Install shouldn't be a problem because we can use the state with cinder install only.
Yeah, I don't know. So I guess the question becomes, is that which way do we want to go, right? Because there's two ways, in my mind, there's two ways to do it. So the first option is you do a dev stack, a minimal dev stack that has Cinder, MySQL, Rabbit, and
yeah.
So that's one option. Then you actually run through and use the MySQL. The other option is you can actually use fixtures and stuff like that and talk directly to the API.
Yes, from my opinion, it's two different tests, functional and integrated.
Okay, that's fair. If you want to.
You are talking about functional from my point of view.
Which one?
With fakes, without Keystone. So this way is more functional.
Okay.
You will.
Integration is the, so, okay, so that's a really good point. And I think that's a good
Call it that.
Yeah, so what I am talking about has been more of functional tests than integrated.
Most tests are useful and needed sometimes.
Yes, absolutely. But what I'm thinking is currently what we don't have is functional tests.
Yeah.
So
I'm agree.
in my opinion, I think it would be cool to actually implement and build some functional tests.
Absolutely.
Leave integration tests where they are.
Yeah, makes sense.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's probably, I've been talking about it forever. People probably don't know what the heck I'm talking about.
Hey, here's a question. If we bump to a new API version, people want it to be free as opposed to 2.1.
It's a big enough.
If we change the URL for a new API version, you want it to be free or 2.1. Nova went from 2 to 2.1.
What was the dispute?
Just how
Oh, is it a major or minor change?
What APIs will be, or will they just new APIs and how will just
well, I think it's a summit changes. I'm just saying, well, that's how the argument of saying 2.1 is. This isn't a new. It's not. It's to prevent confusing people by saying, look, we have API version 3 now. It's exactly the same as 2. So why don't you call it 3? If you call it 2.1, it's maybe more clear that this isn't a major change, it's a minor change. And it's exactly the same as 2, it's just for microversions. And I think that's kind of what Nova did that way. But I'm not sure. I'm just asking the question. Is it a good mic checking issue? 2.1 or 3.1?
I sort of think you're going to have the same question. Whether you're going to 2.1 or 3.
Yeah, that's like what's the difference? But yeah. But 3 does sound like a new major version because it is in 2.1.
I kind of like 2.1 for that reason.
But if you use it quite differently from microversion stuff, I mean, I think 3 is clearer because the way you use it is fundamentally different. If you're writing kernel stuff, you have to do new things.
Right, it's a big deal. Even though you have the same functionality.
3 starts as opposed to that's fine migration stuff.
So 3, any disagreement? All right.
No, 2.3, then you get the 2 and the 3 in there. So. Yeah, compromise 2.3.
All right.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Not on my plate. So until the next topic.
So will this not merge until there's either a Tempest test or functional test? I think is.
I'm okay with that. I mean, the fact is, with some new work here, it might go quickly, but get a little further.
Yeah, then it's going to be.
They want to test more. It's a little safer anyway, so.
It's going to be, it's too late for this now type of conversation.
Yeah, I mean, originally we had some concrete need for this, and I think there's still need for it. If we want to change the API, but that's a ways out anyway. So it would be nice to merge and talk about. I don't know, there's lots of things. Absolutely. Well, I focus on the tasks that lowers the risk group whenever it gets into the fine. I love the reduction. All right, volunteer.
Get that down.
Okay, thanks.
about your status of user notifications?
All right, so I made a dedicated Etherpad because this it's grown substantially over the past 4 or so times I've talked about it. So back in Kilo, I brought this up, where basically the issue that started it all is, let's say I do an attach and it fails and it goes back to available. Why? The user has no idea that it failed, except unless they are checking and see that it's still available. There's a bunch of other use cases where something fails and the user has no idea why. So the idea is, how do you get information back to the user on asynchronous operations? Lots of projects have this problem. Lots of projects have tried to tackle it different ways. The way that's worked probably the best, and was probably one of the first ways to solve it, is instance faults in Nova. But that's very specific. That only solves faults with instances, and also you have other problems like a database table that grows with every fault you get, etc. I could probably go on and on about all the different ways. I got pinged last Cinder meeting. Sheil is now interested in solving this problem. I don't know if Sheil is on the Hangout or not, but he has a blueprint up for solving this problem in one of the ways that has been discussed before, basically using the notifications mechanism. There are a number of problems around this bigger problem, and I've listed them here. There's a lot of different pieces. So there's been, the reason this has never been solved, and Heat had a really good go at it, and then that patch got abandoned, is because it tends to get gold-plated and balloon into solving a million different use cases. Or there's, we don't want to do it with notifications because we don't expose those to the user, or how do we control what information we expose to the user, or do we want it to be a cross-project solution, do we want it to be something simple that, like, for example, we want, if somebody's running Cinder by itself, we want them to still have this functionality of getting the message to the user, all that stuff. So I'm kind of rushing through this a little bit, but we can get into the weeds in a minute. I'm sure we will. Basically, so Heat fizzled out because they wanted to not only get error information to the user, but it ballooned into how do we get status changes, like the resource changes, how do we notify that, so that, like using webhooks or something, so that I can then, instead of polling constantly, I can ping my service and say, oh, this is ready. I can now do something on it, etc. So I have and I know I'm rambling here, but I implemented a POC with the last way that we decided we might want to go about this, using Zakar queues. So what my patch does, and I can actually demo it if the Hangout wasn't full.
Duncan, can you get off the Hangout?
Oh, okay, let me try again. Nope. Well, that might be okay. So Shield's way of thinking, he documented some of his thoughts down here. But I don't know if I want to get into that. Let me talk about the different pieces of the problem. And then maybe we solve each piece and it comes together. Maybe we need to define exactly what Cinder wants a little bit better. I think the only way to get this solved is to go implement it in a project in some experimental fashion and have it bubble out to other projects. I know Cinder has talked about doing the experimental API, so maybe if we do it that way, we could just see how it works out and then change it. Other projects have, I know Manila has the experimental stuff. So, okay. Dumping all that information on everyone's lap. Are there any burning questions before I break it down?
Experimental API stuff. Having done the API microversion stuff is not hard. I actually have to pull it out of the patch and port it to put it back. Talk about that and the fact that we can use it in various ways. And once microversion is merged, I'm happy, or at any time I can just patch up for experimental. So that was just to say that is a pass towards this or anything else, except that, of course, it's last conversation. But just to say, experimental API stuff is technically, once you have microversions,
Okay.
it's very simple.
So it's definitely an option.
So as far as the technical stuff, I'm happy to do that work. Patch is easy.
I think that makes things a lot easier
Because
because,
this is a car view, so what are the implications for the app? Do we need to
well, that's the thing, right? So right now my POC posts to a tenant-specific Zagar queue. So every tenant has their own Cinder errors queue or something. And they could just listen to that. Some implications there, though, is that you have to have Zagar. It's not really, those messages are short-lived, usually. They have time to live on them. We can configure that however we want. I don't think we can do infinite. I don't know if we need that. What's that?
You wouldn't want infinite anyway.
Right, exactly. So those are some of the implications there, where you have to have Zagar. I think that's the main one. I know Eric had some concerns about.
Yeah, I mean the main concern there is that it assumes that because the main case I'm interested in for this is like say create a volume is the client why did fail, right? Any operation like that. The problem with using only Zagar is that you have to assume the client can get to a Zagar plus all that stuff, which is why what I had in mind.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So what I had in mind was more that Cinder would stick these into a database table, and then we have a Cinder API where when you do an operation, you get some kind of request ID or whatever, and we read later to get the result out of that table. And once we put it in Cinder, and Cinder is managing that stuff locally, from there we can send it out to Zagar and other places if we want. But I don't think that should be for like app. I think it really needs to be something Cinder can just do inside of Cinder.
So I think that's a great point, and I guess I had assumed what you were thinking was actually have a communication link between Cinder and Zagar and the Cinder API.
Well, that's another idea, but I would like to.
Yeah, it might be gross, but then the other thing is when you get into the whole experimental API thing, that can't be not experimental. That is an API.
Yeah.
To Eric's point, though, we talked about that part of that in Fort Collins a year or so ago, and I still think that that's a decent idea of putting a task queue or something like that, and actually saying this is the results, this is what happened, and then an API to export.
Because then you can wrap it all into the client,
Yeah.
The IDs that have it report back, whatever.
So, and then we're not dependent on something else. So
Right.
we're not creating another dependency, hard dependency. Because I don't know if anybody else has noticed, but with all the external libs and stuff like that, and even the internal OpenStack libs, we kind of created a mess for ourselves when something changes and break. I mean, look at landscape stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and this is like a deployment dependency too. But I don't think we can assume that somebody that has access to Cinder is just going to have access to R too.
Well, and that's the most important piece, because I don't know about anybody else, but I know, for example, I run Cinder Client on my laptop. I don't even log into my machines, right? So the model, I didn't realize that. That model, I wouldn't even have access to those messages anyway.
Because a lot of deployments, people are going to lock it down.
Well, we also public cloud too.
We also talked with Tokyo about making Cinder pretty much stable as well. Independent of everything else.
Right, I think that's the key part, right?
Yeah.
So the reason things like Zagar came up is because there's a desire for some sort of cross-project thing, and you want one place to go, right? What I'm kind of thinking is, however we decide to generate these messages, there can be multiple consumers, right? One might be the Cinder database, and we expose it to the Cinder API, and maybe we just send it off to Zagar as well.
I think that's a great solution, personally. You can configure it, it's a config option.
Right.
And if Zagar is configured, then you emit information out there, right? Get the best of both worlds out there.
But we always put it in the DB anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And again, and you make that the same type of thing. You can configure, first of all, I think you make it a circular buffer with a certain limit.
So
you just
have
keep
some
over
type
it.
of, retention period of how long you want to keep these. Or
Whether it's retention period or whether it's just overwrite number of events, right? So you only allow, so you say, hey, I allow 5 events.
A retention number.
It's like a rollover for a log file, right?
That's a problem for very busy clients. I do it time-based.
No, and I understand that, but then what I'm saying is it's not really, it's not a problem, because if you did 100 commands on a volume, what the hell do you care about command number 5?
Per volume, not per tenant.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's attached to the resource. It doesn't, it's part of the resource object.
That's going to be fun in MySQL, but in SQL, but yes, I do it very well.
Do we need persistent?
No, so do we need persistent?
Yes.
You need persistent for a medium term period. I mean, I think the cases where someone wants it 2 days later, or 3 weeks later. I think
So
we need
I don't-
Well, then if you want it like that, you have another
With
consumer.
MySQL, because if you just do,
Well, we just need to have a table that we expire
Yeah.
everything out of.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, it's not gonna, you don't even, yeah, so I guess you would have to expire, but what I was thinking is, so you just have something like class, tasks, right, or whatever. And then inside there you have just a queue, basically, of the last n tasks.
If that's not keeping it anyway. That's easy in Python. But that can be stored because it's actually some of them become in the volume, some of them back.
No, okay, so here, let me try and put it more in.
So you update the task.
So, how's this? Task 1, task 2. So if you hard code it, right, which we don't want to do, but you can expand this out, right? The task n. Okay, and this is just 256 chunk. Right? And then what you do is you go in and you just basically round robin through this.
Do you round robin in SQL?
Well, not really. If you leave that up to like the volume object. So now that we have objects and we have everything that
Yeah, but there's 2 different entities, 2 different. No, but there's in the volume services, very careful. Or in the volume and backup, right into the DB, try and find out which entities and update it. That's non-trivial.
I disagree.
I think it should. If you make code look great, I think it's going to be a tricky thing. But if so, it's good. Time-based expiration. It's not bad.
So I think time-based expiration is kind of you still have to limit how many things you can put. Time-based expiration sounds great, but the problem is you have to have a limit as to how many things you can put.
Well, but the number of API requests you can take in that time. That's not an accurate thing. You can't, like, if you're planning on 10 minutes.
So are you going to create, so what you're proposing is you just have something like this, and you just keep instantiating new ones of these.
Yeah. Yeah, and then something else twice. Like something expensive every minute. Well,
I suppose that's cool.
It's easy to code. I mean, I like your.
Yeah, that's really easy. That's way easier than what I was saying.
Yeah. I like your if you code it. I mean, it's better, but I just think that's a nightmare.
Code it. I just don't know if it would work.
Either way, I'm happy with either one as long as it's.
But this is the idea, right? Is we do a task object or whatever, just common generic task object for now, and just back reference it to the.
Yeah, I think it'll probably have to have an ID for volume or snapshot.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I mean There's definitely you definitely need volume ID, snapshot ID,
request ID,
backup ID. Whatever. There's going to be all kinds of details.
Yeah, we generate request ID for every API call anyway. So get that.
That's the easiest way to put it.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you could just do an API easy enough and say, show tasks, and you give it a resource ID. So,
I mean, this is a common paradigm, right? I mean, you do something and then you give back something with full. If we did something like that, I mean, that would work. So we're saying we have a sub-resource of tasks on every user, or some generic?
No, I think it's a
task?
generic table.
Okay, so like slash tasks, and then it tells you a resource, I guess?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So this is a generic, and you can link it. You backref it to volumes, snaps.
I mean, it could be pretty much anything.
Backups.
That's an ID.
Shit, you could services.
Consistency groups.
Yeah, you can make it anything you want.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Anything that has a table can have a back reference to that table.
Right. If somebody wanted a crazy way to find these things, or making cross projects, them as a car or something, that's like a totally separate feature, really. That you would just say, okay, now when I make a task, I can also show it.
Yeah. Well, but I think what's better is you make an actual API that says get these things. Right. Or you do like Salameter does, and you make some kind of an emitter.
Well, that's kind of what the Zakara idea.
I don't know much about Zakara.
That's the other way, right? I mean, either you tell me what to call when I make a request, or I tell you what to call.
Well, so we already have things. We have notifications, kilometer, volume create, all that stuff. It's a similar thing to this. That whenever you get one of these operations, it will admit that this is a car bus.
Right. But you need to know what you can expose to the user.
Yeah, I mean that gets into the whole thing where we were talking about how are we actually forming these? Like, are they all just manually written, or is this going to be some kind of smart catch exceptions and generate the thing?
I like manually written.
I do too, actually. I think that's probably going to be the way to go at first.
Does anyone not agree with that?
No, I think to start, that's good.
Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing like one file with a bunch of constants and you can reference it. It's all in one spot. This is all the stuff that we can do for user business. Okay. Yeah, because I really just want to solve this problem. The main problem, getting something back to the user ASAP. As long as we don't pigeonhole ourselves from creating a solution that everybody else is.
I think we kind of all agree on what the table should look like. Just the basic pieces that are. Yeah, it seems pretty.
I think it doesn't solve all use cases. It doesn't design to a corner.
Right.
And it's also pretty important. It's really nice to solve.
Yeah. So this is the number one piece of feedback. It's starting to sit right.
Yeah.
So I think it's fantastic that you're, I think it's great. And the other thing is I think one of the things that we always do poorly, or traditionally we've done poorly, is let's cover all the use cases.
That's why this is just
no, it's not. Because then we'll never do anything.
What about there's no tie back to like instances, so we're only going to get what Cinder is doing. I mean, we're not solving. No, I'm just saying this is going to be good for Cinder, but attach fails or.
But any project though could take the basic shape we're talking about and do something with it. I mean,
But the point is the only thing that Cinder does with instances is volume related, right? So if there is an error that comes back or something happens, we will still store that and have that information associated with that volume. Right? Unless I'm missing the.
No, I
When we do the next Cinder Nova API, we might give Nova an opportunity to tell us more about, if it can join the patch, if it calls catch and then goes to complaint. When it goes to clean up, you need to tell it to stop it.
Catch is kind of like a Nova thing. I mean,
Yeah.
Nova would be the
Yeah. We also have Nova Evacuate, Nova Rebuild, all these other type of, but yeah, they all call in a Cinder to do something, so we're capturing the Cinder side there.
Okay. The answer to my question was seeing what this community is doing. And I'll work with Shield when Shield doing something like this.
You'll have that by the end of the day.
So how is this going to scale from a database how much extra load would it put on the database?
I mean, it can't put that much more than all of the items that are created for every one of these operations now, is it?
Well, how often would we actually write something to this table?
So I would think, in my personal opinion, the only time you would write something to that table is when something goes into errors.
So successes have nothing.
I see no reason to put in anything for success.
Asynchronous operation.
Huh?
Well, that's true as long.
Well, and that's fine. So, but the point is that, so let's focus on the initial problem and what most people see as a problem, which is, hey, my volume went into an error state and I don't know why. So for now, let's just focus on that and not create a bunch of noise around.
Well, for the success case, you're assuming that you're relying just on the status transition of the object, which is fine. Right. Because if it goes there, then you don't really need additional information.
Anything on like long-running tasks or anything?
Well, again, I don't think the other thing in this design that stops is adding success state later.
Yeah.
There's nothing in it fine. I personally would object to adding success states to something like this down the road because it's completely unnecessary noise. There's no value in it. But well, I don't want to debate it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
The time I've wanted it was when I do two things in a volume at the same time, which we definitely have people who do, and I've tried to debug them before.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if somebody says extend and snapshot, but say issue both at the same time. Okay. Knowing what happened with each is useful.
Okay.
Well, that's kind of what notifications are for, right?
But I can't get those as a client.
That's right. So maybe that's why this is brought us to maybe using existing notifications graph, because then we just say, okay, this part of this notification is user visible.
Hold on. Duncan, your case, one of those operations should fail, otherwise we've implemented it badly, right?
Well, no, so you can queue them. And a lot of times, you implicitly queue them on that manager lock.
It queues them, okay.
Yeah, it implicitly queues them because the manager takes the lock out of the volume.
So one of them blocks until the other one.
Yeah. So you'll end up with a snapshot of one side you'll do that and the volume extended at the moment on most back, but not all back in.
So I think that's cool. I think that's, I see your point now. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But what I would say is, I think it would be best if we focus first on dealing with errors and tracking that, and then start looking out at the other. Just because I know how things go on.
Yes. Because we should be able to do this where we can handle that kind of thing as the next phase.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's gonna. It doesn't sound like we'll just keep that in mind. It doesn't sound like the proposal.
At the end of the day, every project's going to need their own individual way to do this. And if we want some common way to do it or something, then it's going to have to be in addition to this. But yeah, this is fizzled out every time because we've tried too much. And I just want to do the task.
I think it'd be awesome.
And then, if something talks about that, then I can version and hand it off.
Yeah. Actually, you can't do that because you can't make the API and file it there and people listen.
Talks about it, so what?
So don't use it. That's the whole point of the experimental thing is to say,
yeah,
if you consciously send experimental, this may go away. Don't complain.
I mean, I kind of get the feeling that we're going to experiment with this and everybody's going to be like, oh, this is really good and I want this.
Yeah, it's not experimental. Just do it. Come on.
Yeah.
Remote. We do it all the time.
Yeah, we put stuff in there that sucks and we have to take it out.
Well, I don't want to. I'd rather be experimental because it's made radar.
Well, you can just do like glancing keystone and just say all of it. You can do whatever you want. It's public. No, we're not going to do it.
Okay. Flash task, experimental. I'll come up with some sort of task with fun. You guys say it's experimental? Yeah.
Can I take one final request on that? Please do not call it the tasks API. Because a whole bunch of cross-project people will leap on it, and it will just end up in so much pain. Just call it something not standard. Yeah, status, anything like that.
Messages doesn't pigeonhole us from doing anything else.
Yeah.
Would.
Request status, anything like that. Just don't blueprint all the spec, but attach an API in the code. No, you don't do that over there.
After request test, I don't think I'm going to call it a test. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to talk to you on Friday.
Thank you for listening in. We weren't able to get him to join. So, yeah.
Okay.
We're going to change all of that for the next break.
Okay, so real quick, these saw format like messages. I'll come up with something that'll be some sort of kind of read content of messages. That'll be some sort of handcrafted messages, no auto-generated from vaults or anything like that. How to create the message, it sounds like we're just going to shove it in the database, which goes right along with where to put it, just in the database. We expose them via some /messages API, and if Verizon wants to consume that quickly. That answers all the parts if there's no points of contention. And there's not, so we're good.
I mean, should you design it in a way to where if it needed to be put on a message bus, it would be easier to do that? I don't know.
Well, I think, if we do /messages, and let's say we have a problem where it goes in the database where we build all these giant databases. There's no reason I couldn't throw Zakar underneath there and expose it from Zakar.
The main question that I kept wondering about was that is if these messages need to have some strict structure with certain people, they're pretty freeform.
I'd want it well defined. I would want well defined.
So you were saying, if I understood right, you were actually saying defining the module and so you just call the.
I'm thinking the actual content, the text, is what we define in the module. When it comes to the structure, I'll propose something, and then we can. But as long as if it's we can add stuff to it if we find we need to. I'll start real minimal. Here's a message.
The basic structure was kind of what there.
Yeah.
Request ID, push ID.
I'll whatever I propose will be all the minimal obvious things, then we can figure out what we need to add. And resource IDs should be an obvious one. I guess you want to know what type of resource.
You have a spec for the spec in Grizzly, right?
Okay. Sweet. Well, we can bulldoze on this and just get something done.
Start, yeah.
Because it's real dumb to call support when you say this is an error and I have no idea why. Yeah. Oh, we're out of capacity. Oh, thanks for telling me. Okay. Cool. Speak now for everyone's piece. Comment on the patch.
Yeah, for the reviews.
Okay.
Yeah, we should have a spec for it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll write code and then I'll write stuff. I know what works here.
Is there a busy lunchtime at the cafeteria and a not so busy lunchtime at the cafeteria?
We're going to have to wait a little while if we're not so busy.
It's pretty, it's not close to the background topics.
Your chances of over 30 people going off site.
How many minivans do we have?
Yeah, we have to actually discover that.
We should account for dinner tonight.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty good point for that. Oops. Is there anyone that doesn't plan on going to dinner tonight with the group?
Everybody's going to dinner tonight with the group then.
Maggiano's.
Yeah.
Which holds 15 people or 15?
20. It said 20, yeah. So I figured if we show up at 23, they're really going to kick us out.
So 20 of you show up, the rest of us 10 show up as just individuals?
Yeah. How many do we have?
How many are
have we tried to ask for more?
And it's still, 23 is
23 is all? 30.
You can either have Some more related. People are still having.
Or you can get a standalone SBC box that you.
What do you want? You're in trouble.
That very virtualized, such that you can associate other vendors back in.
Everyone in this room.
Obviously, I got it in. I believe it was only associated with B3500.
No, that makes sense, but that was the argument I gave for Python. Because they were saying,
I got 27.
That's it.
That's cool.
So I mean, now the question is, Sean and Shane, I kind of said, okay.
I'm a maybe.
Okay. Where do we go?
So between 25 and 30. Okay. So between 20 and 25. A few people get lost.
Yeah. It looks like I know. Okay.
We gotta wait for time to get
Well, I mean, I think
I've almost got to convince us to use his and get all those points.
I knew that this question was going to eventually come. Well, no, but it's also gone to Sean, it's gone to Shake. It's gone to everybody but me at the moment.
Yeah,
They're coming to me.
I'll just show the blowout.
Okay. No, but I think maybe we should have that discussion. All right.
You said that.
Yeah. Okay.
I told them 30.
I'll put it on the.
I know we had